In one of your recent sessions, you mentioned something to the effect that if we worship any form of God with love, the full power of God works through that form. Could you kindly elaborate on this?
Yes. That is, when we are worshipping any form of God, any Vigraha or Arunachal, I mean, God in the form of Arunachal, or God in the form of a Shivalinga, or in the form of a Vigraha of Rama or Krishna or Durga or Narasimha or whatever it is. So many different names and forms are there. Or in human form as Bhagavan or Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Adi Shankara, Buddha, whatever. There's so many different forms in which we can worship God. Though the form is very limited, what we are worshipping in that form is God, who is the infinite whole. So the reason we worship the infinite God in a finite form is that our minds are finite. We cannot know the infinite so long as we experience ourselves as finite. In order to know the infinite, we need to be the infinite. In other words, we need to experience ourselves as the infinite being that we actually are. So long as we rise as ego, we cannot know God as he actually is, because what God actually is what we actually are. So long as we rise as ego, we're knowing ourselves as something other than what we actually are. So as ego, we experience ourselves as finite. We can only conceive finite things. Yes, in most languages, there's a word that means infinite. We we can get a vague idea of what we mean by infinite, but we can never actually conceive what is infinite because everything we know is limited. Every thought is a limitation. So the thought of the infinite is a finite thought of something that is infinite. We really don't know the infinite. The only way to know the infinite is to be the infinite. So, because of our limitations, we can only worship God as something limited. So long as we take God to be something other than ourselves, we worship him in some form, whether the form of Arunachal or the form of Bhagavan or whatever the form may be. But we shouldn't think that because that form is limited, that only a limited part of God's power can come through that form. That would be a misunderstanding. God, that is, in verse 28 of Upadeshundya, Bhagavan says, if one knows what the real nature of oneself is, then Anadi, Ananta, Akanda, Satchidananda. That is, he describes Satchidananda, which is what God actually is and what we actually are. He describes that as Anadi, it's beginningless. It is Ananta. Ananta means not just endless, it means limitless. So in other words, infinite. And he also describes it as Akanda. Akanda means unbroken, undivided. So the one infinite whole has no parts. It cannot be divided up into parts. So if we say only a part of God's power will one part will manifest through the Vigraha of Krishna, another part will manifest through the Vigraha of Ganapati, another part will manifest through this form or that form, then we are in our mind we are dividing the indivisible into small parts. So there's no such thing as a part of God. He is partless. So if his power manifests through any Vigraha, it can only be his entire power. Another thing that is, people often say the soul is the spark of divinity within the heart of each one of us, or words to that effect. A spark is a small part of a big fire, a small spark comes out. in order to point people towards the fact that the divine is ever present in our heart, to describe the soul or the I or the awareness or whatever as a spark of divinity, that is pointing us in the right direction, but it is not an adequate description, because it's not just a part of God that exists in our heart. God doesn't have parts. He's the infinite whole. He cannot be divided. So, but the whole of God, that paripurna vastu, is what is shining in our heart as our own being. That infinite, Krishna says in the Gita, I am Atma in the heart of all living beings. Bhagavan says, Ariyati Tarajivara Dahavari Jagohail, Arivairami Paramatman Arunachala Ramanan. Arunachala Ramana is the Paramatma, but blissfully exists as awareness in the cave of the heart lotus of all living beings. He doesn't say a little bit of Arunachala Ramana exists in each one. Krishna doesn't say a little bit of him exists as the Atma in each one. No, the whole of him is the Atma in each one of us. We need to understand it like that. Is that clear?
Yes, so my question was regarding the full power works through that form. Full power working through that form. That is not very clear.
Yeah, well, how does the power work? The power doesn't actually do anything. It just by being as it is, that is the power. God and his power are not two different things. And God is infinite being. So that is the power of infinite being. So when we talk about, Bhagavan talks about Ari Varu Giriyena, Varudaru Mamma, Adi Sayam Idan Sail, Ari Varidakam. He refers to sail means, literally it means doing. The action, the doing. So he says the action of Arunachala cannot be understood by anyone. But what is the action of Arunachala? It does everything without, as Bhagavan often said, God does everything without doing anything, just by being as he is. That's why he says in the 15th paragraph of Nana that all the Panchakritiyas, creation, sustenance, dissolution, veiling, and grace, the 5 divine functions, they all happen Isan Sanidana Visesha Matratal, by the mere special nature of the presence of God. So by his just being as he is, everything happens as it's meant to happen. Because of the limitations of language, and not just the limitations of language, because the limitation of our finite mind to grasp the infinite, it is expressed in ways that are graspable by us. So it talks about the action of grace. That is when Bhagavan says it's sail, it's doing, he's talking about aral sail, the action of grace. But the action of grace is not doing but being. But by just being as it is, it makes everything happen as it's meant to happen. So when I say that power works through that vigraha, it's because our minds cannot conceive it in any other way.
So, sir, can we say that when we worship a vigraha, it should be with that bhava, that this is the paripurna Brahman, that bhava should be there, that it's a whole, it's represents the whole.
If that bhava isn't there, we've completely missed the point.
Yes.
If someone worships a vigraha of Krishna and thinks a little bit of Krishna is there in the in that idol, they haven't understood Krishna. There are no little bits of Krishna. He doesn't admit of parts. He's the infinite whole.
Yes. So to invoke that part, we have to have that bhava, that what we are
Yeah.
worshiping is the complete whole. It's the infinite Satchidananda in
Yeah.
that form.
Exactly.
And only we can invoke that power.
Exactly. We have to have that bhava is very, very important.
Yes, sir. That's what it
That's
was
the
not.
key. That's the key. Otherwise, if you don't have the bhava, that vigraha is just a stone or a piece of marble or a piece of granite or whatever, or a piece of bronze. It's the bhava that invokes the divine to act through that. And
Got it,
even
sir.
that bhava, where does the bhava come from? That bhava arises in our heart only by the grace of that divine. That's why Manikavasaka sings in Shiva Puranam, Avanaralale Avantalvanangi. Only by his grace, Avantalvanangi means worshipping his feet or bowing to his feet or subsiding before his feet. That is possible only by his grace.
So there is a concept of prana pratishtha.
Yes,
How does it work? Is it the same, something connected
it's the
here?
same thing. It's the bhava. It's the bhava. that is, it, but that bhava is very, very real. We shouldn't just think, oh, it's just a bhava. That is, for doing prana pratishtha. For those who don't understand, prana pratishtha means when an idol is made, it's made out of stone or brass or whatever, and there's a ritual to be gone through. The eyes of the vigraha have to be opened. There's a ritual for opening the eyes. And the whole thing is called prana pratishtha. That is bringing the life into that, transforming that lifeless piece of stone or brass, making it into a living God. There's a ritual for that. But that ritual is necessary in order to invoke that bhava in the heart of devotees. But so many people have their own personal idols that they worship. People have idols at home. People buy an idol in a shop and they worship it. They don't go through all these. It's not necessary to go through all the rituals of prana pratishtha because the bhava is the real prana pratishtha. But in temples, it's all done in a ritual way. So they call it prana pratishtha, and then you feel there's something special there. But ultimately, it all comes down to the bhava.
Got it, sir.
For someone who doesn't see God in a particular vigraha, it is just a stone. These people are, what are they doing? They're just worshipping a piece of stone or whatever. It's meaningless for someone who doesn't have that bhava. But for someone who has the bhava, it is 100% real. And that bhava is not an ordinary thing. As I said, to truly have that bhava can come only from God. It's only by grace that we get that bhava.
So when I used to go to the local Ramana shrine, I used to feel certain extra peace and power there, some
Yeah.
extra power there. So like, what was that? Was it real or was it my imagination or something? That in that shrine, in the local Bangalore shrine, I
Yeah.
used to, I'm not going there now.
These things, they're more than just our imagination. I remember once I was 2 days after Deepam, Arunacheshwara, the Utsavamurti, goes around the hill. And what happens is that because there are two Arunacheshwara temples. There's the main Arunacheshwara temple in the town, and in Adi Annamalai, there's another Arunacheshwara temple. So the Utsavamurti, for those who don't understand, Utsavamurti means the festival form. So there's a certain form in the temple. There'll be a brass figure that is taken out for processions. It's the same God in the temple, but in a different form of the same God. So the Uḷḷadu from Adi Anamale, the evening before, it goes round and comes to the main temple. It spends the night in the main temple, and the next morning, the Uḷḷadu from the main temple and the Adi Anamale Uḷḷadu go together. They come round the hill. They come to the Adi Anamale temple. The main Uḷḷadu remains outside, and the Adi Anamale Uḷḷadu is brought back in and put back. That is the main shrine is where Arunachaleshwar is in the form of a linga. Behind that, there's a place where the Uḷḷadu is kept at times not of festival. I remember one year when I was there at that time, when they bring the Uḷḷadu in, they are carrying, that is a dozen men or so, are carrying the Uḷḷadu. They are on big long poles, and the murti is set on a stand above those poles. So it's like a palanquin, we can say. So they're carrying it, and when they bring it into the temple, they dance, and you see the deity dancing. I remember looking at that deity, and they're very, very beautiful, these Uḷḷadu. There's something very sublime about their expression on the Uḷḷadu's face. And I could clearly see that face was fully alive. I can't say it, but I mean, you couldn't, I mean, anyone can dismiss it as just my imagination. But for me, it wasn't imagination. I actually saw the life in that Uḷḷadu. It was something so beautiful and so mesmerizingly beautiful. And then after that, they took it in and they took it there. So after the main deity had gone, I went back into the temple to look at the Uḷḷadu again. And I looked at it, and it was just nothing. I mean, it's a beautiful form, but the life that I saw was no longer there. Because once the Uḷḷadu comes back into the shrine, the deity returns to the main idol. So but I could clearly see the difference between that idol when they were bringing it into the shrine, and once it was placed back there, there was a clear difference. Anyone can say this is just my imagination, but to me it didn't feel like imagination. There was something very, very real about that. So these things, it's more than imagination. We can say it's bhava, but even where does that bhava come from? I don't think bhava is we can't just generate a bhava. The bhava comes only by grace.
Yes, because as soon as I used to enter the temple, I used to feel some special peace and power which was not felt outside. Immediately, as soon as you enter it, the entire atmosphere.
Yeah.
So that was something special.
If we go to Bhagavan Shrine in Ramanashram, in Tiruvannamalai, there's something so
The same thing.
There's something so appealing. You just want to do nothing but just go round and round and round and round. It's just such a it's something we can't explain adequately in words.
Especially the old hall, sir. The atmosphere in the old hall is also something unique.
Yes.
Some sort of a presence is there.
That picture of Bhagavan sitting on the sofa, that picture is alive. It's not just an ordinary picture, but we can see it in any picture. Here I've got this. I've got this image of Bhagavan in the background so I'm looking at it now. When we look at that picture of Bhagavan, that we can see that picture is alive. I remember there was an incident. Someone once said something to Bhagavan about, I can't remember what they said, something about a picture of Bhagavan. And Bhagavan said, what makes you think it's just a picture? So there's something more to the picture than just a picture. If we look at the Bhagavan's eyes in any picture, we can see him looking deep inside us. We cannot adequately express it in words, but it's not just a picture.
So can you see this picture?
Yes,
So can
yes,
you see this picture?
yes, yes,
This picture is hanging in front of my office where I'm sitting now.
yes,
The eyes are so very powerful, especially in this picture, that I'm
yes,
not able to look at the eyes.
yes.
As soon as I look at it, I have to turn
Yeah,
my
yeah.
head.
I know.
This particular picture, sir.
Yes, yes, yes.
Other pictures have more of love, some compassion, some understanding.
Yeah,
But this very picture, I find that it is so full of power, that Bhagwan's power, that we
yes,
can't look at the eyes. It's a fire of jnana here.
yes, yes.
Fire of jnana.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. So like some of the pictures are like that, sir.
Yes. But how are we able to see that? It's only by his grace.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Right.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, right.